So population overall, religious-wise, 95% everybody is Christian. Everybody believes in a God. So it was really easy to talk to people because everybody was like, yes, let's talk about Jesus. And everybody was so friendly and so kind, whether they were a member or a non-member. But my first area was Lincoln, Nebraska. So Omaha's the biggest city. Lincoln's the second biggest city, and then Grand Island, a little further out, is the third biggest city. Pretty sure. Anyways. But Lincoln, it was pretty ghetto. There were lots of poor people that lived there. And it was kind of surprising. A lot of them were Muslim or they came from Sudan. So a lot of the people that we had taught, we kind of had a language barrier. Some of them could speak Arabic and very little English. Some of them spoke Sudanese, and we couldn't find Book of Mormons for people that spoke Sudanese because they hadn't come out with one. They might have one now, I'm not sure. But they could read Arabic. So we got a lot of Arabic Book of Mormons and shared them with those that were Muslim or from Sudan. The attendance of the members, it was kind of surprising because a lot of the branches, it was easier to keep track of how active people were, but it was a lot harder to bring people to church sometimes because of how far away everybody was. In Lincoln, it was like 70% of people were active, I think. And it was pretty stagnant for a little bit. But we had a lot of success while I was there being trained and training. I have trained after my second transfer. And we had a lot of success with mostly less active families that had children that were of baptism age. And then, let's see, Fremont and Plattsmouth, they were harder for sure. A lot of the members were pretty hard-hearted and they weren't willing to do missionary work sometimes. But we had changed that as much as we could to inspire the spirit of missionary work. And the attendance maybe wasn't the best, but it was improving, and it probably has improved a lot more since then. And for Kearney, that was my last area. We were serving in a branch and a ward at the same time, so we were at church for about 6 hours. But we had success in both areas with the family ward, and it was a YSA ward, a young single adult ward. And for the young single adult ward, that was probably my favorite branch to serve in because everybody was so united and everybody was so willing to sacrifice for our members and for our investigators that we were working with. That was probably my favorite part about my mission, was to see these people that were so dedicated and were so willing to go on team-ups with us to go teach members, non-members, and less actives. Yeah, so our mission, like I had said before, is the third biggest mission in the United States. It covers South Dakota, a little bit of Missouri, I think, Iowa and Kansas, and the majority of Nebraska. So it's pretty big overall, going from one place to the next. It's about 5 hours to 6 hours traveling. Fun facts, I think Hershey was invented there, and Kool-Aid also. Let's see, so a big church history site there is the winter quarters. And as we know, that was a really big deal for the pioneers. It's a really cool place to go to. We were always encouraged to bring less actives and non-members to the visiting center because, I didn't know this, but it is consecrated much like unto a temple. And it's right next to the Omaha temple. And every time we brought a non-member there, they were baptized because they knew that these people that had believed in something that was so minuscule at the time and was such a big deal also. Nobody understood it, but yet they moved by faith. And that just blew everybody's mind. Like, they were so impressed that these people would travel miles and a long time to a place that they didn't know would be the place of Zion. So it was really cool for them and a really good experience for them. It did have a feeling of the temple, even though they couldn't go in the temple. And that's something that I appreciated about it. They only have one temple. It's technically in Florence, but it's pretty close to Omaha. And it's a very small temple. The next closest temple is probably St. Louis, and that's a couple hours away. But when the temple wasn't there in Florence, many members would travel days. They would make it a weekend trip just to get to St. Louis to do temple work for their family members. And it was cool to meet with members that were there during that time. I wish I had done better at being more personal and going out of my way for showing people that they're loved. I had done that more towards the end of my mission, but at the beginning of my mission, I wish that I had left notes for our non-members or had done a small little tender mercy for them. Like if I knew that they needed their dishes done, that I would have done them right away without asking. I had a bad habit of asking if I could do something for them, which isn't bad. But I remember there was one interview I had with my mission president, and I told him, I'm asking people if I can serve them. And he's like, don't do that. Stop it. He told me to not ask anymore and to just do it. And if that person genuinely says that I shouldn't be doing that for them, then I would respect their wishes. But that's something that I wish I had done better, was just doing, like Nephi, just do it. But for baptism, I wish that I had, I feel like I did really well at inviting people to be baptized, but not on the first visit. That was something that was emphasized a lot, especially when I was a sister training leader during our missionary leadership committee. We would talk about how missionaries are hesitating the first lesson to invite people to be baptized because either we're nervous or we just don't feel like it's right, or that person may not be interested and we're afraid to ask them. So later on in my mission, I had done that, where I would invite them to be baptized first visit, whether it was a contact or whatever. And surprisingly, people would say yes. And so I think that people should not be afraid to invite somebody to do something that can change their life, especially baptism. Many people want to be clean, and they want to be free of sin, and they want to come closer to God. And that's what baptism does. That's the first step to coming closer to God and being more like our Savior. And I wish that I had testified more boldly that that is so important. And if we want to create a stronger relationship with Christ, that's how we should do it. Something that we kind of struggled with, and that missionaries should be patient with, is bishops and ward council. Ward council is super important, and I think it's important for missionaries to be prepared and to take notes. And but I had a bishop that I struggled with, and he was an older bishop. He had been a bishop for quite a few years, and he was ready to be done. So he was kind of feeling trunky, as they say, where they're just over it. They're just like, all right, whatever, there will be a new bishop and he'll take care of my mistakes. And that was really frustrating for me because he wasn't willing to make missionary work a priority. And so later we had prayed to know how to work with him. And eventually miracles came from that because we were having a lens of understanding how he works and what is best for him and for the ward. But overall, I would say that it's important to understand how people work and be patient with how they work and not expect them to move at the same pace as a missionary, because that's all we do. That's all that missionaries do, is give 110% of their time to the Lord. And members, even if they have callings, they also have families and they have work and they have other things that seem more of a priority to them. So it's important to be patient.